On February 28, 2026, President Trump made a historic announcement from the White House, declaring that the United States, in full and direct coordination with Israel, had initiated major combat operations against Iran. The world watched as the president, flanked by American and Israeli flags, outlined the gravity of the situation and the reasons behind this unprecedented military action. He emphasized that this was not a decision taken lightly, but one made after careful deliberation, and in response to escalating threats from Tehran. The announcement sent shockwaves through global capitals, as leaders scrambled to assess the implications of this bold move. The operation came after several weeks of intense military buildup in the Persian Gulf region. Satellite images revealed a formidable presence of U.S. Navy aircraft carriers and Israeli naval vessels, along with squadrons of fighter jets patrolling the skies. Troops were seen preparing at desert air bases, loading equipment and readying for deployment. This visible show of force confirmed the worst fears of many analysts who had warned that a major conflict in the Middle East was imminent. The world braced for the possibility of a wider regional war. In his televised address, President Trump described the operation as a decisive and necessary response to what he called unacceptable and escalating Iranian threats. He stated that the primary objective was to neutralize key Iranian military targets, including missile sites, command centers, and infrastructure believed to be supporting hostile activities. The president assured the American public and the world that every measure was being taken to minimize civilian casualties, but stressed that the U.S. and Israel would not tolerate further aggression from Iran. The night sky lit up with the roar of military jets and the launch of missiles, marking the beginning of a new and dangerous phase in the region. As news of the operation broke, images of U.S. and Israeli forces mobilizing quickly spread across global media. Soldiers boarded armored vehicles, convoys moved through the desert under heavy security, and newsrooms around the world displayed maps of the Middle East, tracking the unfolding events. The scale and coordination of the operation signaled a new era of confrontation, with both nations demonstrating their resolve to act decisively. Analysts debated the potential consequences, while ordinary citizens watched anxiously, aware that the region, and perhaps the world, was entering uncharted territory. Across the globe, people gathered in public spaces to watch the breaking news unfold on television screens. In Tehran, the atmosphere was tense, with city streets unusually quiet as residents awaited further developments. World leaders convened emergency meetings, urgently discussing diplomatic and military responses. The eyes of the world are now fixed on this high-stakes campaign, its outcome uncertain and its impact potentially historic. As events continue to develop, the international community holds its breath, knowing that the decisions made in the coming days could reshape the future of the Middle East and the world. This military escalation came after weeks of failed diplomacy between Washington and Tehran. U.S. negotiators demanded Iran halt all uranium enrichment, but Iran refused, citing sovereignty. The final American ultimatum, comply or face military consequences, was rejected, closing the door on peaceful resolution. Trump cited Iran's defiance as justification for the strikes, framing the regime as an international threat. With diplomacy dead, missiles replaced words, marking a grim new chapter in U.S.-Iran relations. President Trump justified the intervention as a necessary defense against Iran's nuclear ambitions. He accused Tehran of rebuilding its nuclear program and developing long-range missiles, posing a direct threat to the U.S. and its allies. The administration framed the operation as essential for both American and Israeli security, calling Iran's regime an existential danger. Trump's message blended intelligence claims with a moral stance against Iran's oppressive government and support for terrorism. The case for war was clear: act now, or risk a nuclear-armed adversary destabilizing the region. The operation is designed to systematically target Iran's most critical military assets, with a primary focus on its missile sites and naval forces. By striking these key locations, the coalition aims to significantly weaken Iran's ability to launch offensive operations, both regionally and beyond its borders. The strategy is not just about immediate destruction, but about crippling Iran's long-term capacity to threaten its neighbors or project power across the Middle East. US and Israeli forces are executing a coordinated campaign of widespread air and naval strikes. These attacks are meticulously planned, targeting not only missile stockpiles and launch sites, but also the factories and infrastructure that support Iran's weapons programs. Naval assets, including warships and submarines, are also under heavy assault, aiming to neutralize Iran's ability to disrupt maritime traffic or launch retaliatory strikes. The scale of the campaign is unprecedented in the region. Multiple US carrier strike groups are deployed in the Persian Gulf, launching waves of advanced fighter jets and bombers, including stealth aircraft like the B-2 and F-35. Israeli intelligence plays a crucial role, providing real-time targeting data and coordinating precision strikes to maximize impact while minimizing collateral damage. The operation is a showcase of modern military coordination and technological superiority. Beyond degrading Iran's military, a central objective is to secure vital shipping lanes in the Persian Gulf and the Strait of Hormuz. These waterways are essential for global energy supplies, and any disruption could have far-reaching economic consequences. US Navy ships and allied forces are on high alert, patrolling these routes to ensure the safe passage of commercial vessels and to deter any Iranian attempts at retaliation or blockade. However, the intensity of the strikes brings significant risks. Many military targets are located near densely populated urban centers, raising the potential for civilian casualties and humanitarian crises. Emergency responders are already on the ground, dealing with the aftermath of airstrikes and trying to assist those caught in the crossfire. The specter of escalation looms large, as each strike risks provoking a broader regional conflict. Ultimately, the success of this operation will be judged not only by the immediate military gains, but also by the coalition's ability to contain the conflict and prevent it from spiraling out of control. World leaders are closely monitoring the situation, aware that the outcome could reshape the balance of power in the Middle East for years to come. Israel's partnership is front and center, with Prime Minister Netanyahu confirming active participation in the strikes. For Israel, the operation is a matter of survival, aimed at eliminating the existential threat posed by Iran's regime. Israeli forces are leveraging advanced technology and intelligence to target nuclear and missile sites. The joint operation demonstrates unprecedented US-Israel military integration, sending a powerful deterrent message to Tehran. This unity, however, also makes American forces direct targets for Iranian retaliation. The gamble overwhelming force will deter escalation and reshape the regional balance of power. In a dramatic escalation, Iran responded with remarkable speed, launching a barrage of ballistic missiles toward Israel just hours after the United States made its announcement. The night sky over the Middle East was suddenly illuminated by streaks of fire, as missile trails arced across the horizon, signaling a new and dangerous phase in the conflict. The world watched in real time as news outlets broadcast footage of the launches, and military command centers scrambled to assess the scale and trajectory of the attack. Israeli air defenses, including the renowned Iron Dome and the advanced Arrow system, sprang into action. Sirens wailed across Israeli cities as defense crews worked tirelessly through the night, intercepting many of the incoming missiles. Despite their success, the threat of casualties and the risk of further escalation remained ever present, casting a shadow of uncertainty over the region. Each interception was a relief, but every missile that slipped through heightened the anxiety of millions. Tehran's swift and forceful retaliation was more than just a military maneuver. It was a calculated message to both its adversaries and its allies. By demonstrating its capacity and willingness to strike back, Iran aimed to rally regional support, galvanize its population, and put maximum pressure on Israel. The government's statements and public displays of strength were designed to show resolve, while maps of the region highlighted the growing danger of a broader conflict. For Israeli civilians, the psychological toll was immediate and profound. Families rushed to bomb shelters as air raid sirens pierced the night. Children clung to parents and communities huddled underground, uncertain of what the next hours would bring. Emergency services worked around the clock, offering aid and reassurance, but the fear of further attacks lingered heavily in the air, leaving a nation on edge. Through televised statements and military posturing, Iran made its intentions unmistakably clear. Any assault on its sovereignty would trigger immediate and severe consequences, not just for Israel, but for America's closest ally in the region. The world's attention turned to urgent diplomatic meetings as leaders weighed their next moves in a rapidly evolving crisis. As the United Nations Security Council convened an emergency session and military convoys mobilized across the Middle East, the world now waits anxiously. The question on everyone's mind: will this exchange remain contained, or will it spiral into a wider regional war with consequences far beyond the current horizon? In his address, Trump spoke directly to the Iranian people, urging them to stay safe and framing the strikes as a campaign against their oppressive regime. He called for Iranians to rise up after the attacks, openly endorsing regime change as a central goal. To Iran's leaders, Trump issued a stark ultimatum: surrender for immunity, or face certain death. This dual approach, offering amnesty while threatening annihilation, aims to fracture the regime's resolve. The strategy is risky, with the potential to either hasten the conflict's end or harden resistance and prolong the war. Today's combat operations follow a pattern of escalating U.S. military actions under Trump. Last year's Operation Midnight Hammer saw targeted strikes on Iranian nuclear sites, testing Iran's defenses and resolve. The muted Iranian response then may have emboldened U.S. planners for today's larger assault. Confidence was further boosted by the recent U.S. Special Forces raid in Venezuela, which captured Nicolas Maduro. These successes lowered the threshold for military action, fueling belief in the administration's ability to execute high-risk missions. The result: a White House increasingly reliant on force to confront hostile regimes. The Iran operation has ignited fierce debate in Congress over presidential war powers. Lawmakers from both parties criticized Trump for bypassing congressional authorization, raising constitutional and strategic concerns. Some, like Representative Massi and Senator Gallego, questioned the wisdom and necessity of another Middle East war. Memories of Iraq and Afghanistan fuel skepticism about long-term strategy and exit plans. The political divide threatens to complicate the war effort and send mixed signals to allies and adversaries. As the conflict unfolds, the battle in Congress may prove as consequential as the one overseas.